Hi, I'm Daniel Butler. Welcome to another edition of America's Dumbest Criminals.
On this episode of America's Dumbest Criminals.
Most of you guys are, lousy actors.
A man adds more than sugar to his coffee. A Yuletide burglar gets caught with his pants down.
There's no smoking in here.
A loser picks the wrong place to light up.
Hey!
A stoner makes an indecent proposal to a cop.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, listen, man, what's up?
Hey, what's up? Whoa, wow.
All this and more on this week's episode of America's Dumbest Criminals. Here's your host, Daniel Butler.
There's nothing that people look forward to more than that first cup of coffee in the morning. But as this next surveillance tape shows, there's a lot to be said for switching to hot tea. Workers at a factory in St. Joseph, Missouri had been wondering why their coffee had been tasting so bad in recent weeks and decided to set up a camera to see what was brewing. They were shocked to find out that one of their disgruntled employees had been coming into the office and routinely adding more than just a spoonful of sugar to the pot. How about those Dodgers, huh? Ooh. There are many vendors with the no questions asked refund policy. But how many crooks extend their victims the same courtesy? Here's one yo-yo who struck out after making a dumb deal. A clerk in a St. Peters, Missouri convenience store was just about to call the cops after being robbed of $100 when, to his surprise, the crook came back.
Okay, man, I need to jump on my car, okay? If you give me a jump, I'll give you back the money. Look, just give me a jump on my car. If you give me a jump, I'll give you back the money. Okay?
But that wasn't all the crook wanted for his hot 100. He also wanted a 40-minute head start and didn't want the clerk to write down his license plate number. Considering that the thief was armed, the clerk complied.
But he couldn't resist sharing his newfound knowledge with local authorities, and the bargaining burglar was quickly caught. Sometimes dumb criminals don't seem to realize just how stupid they look when they commit a crime. And they seem genuinely surprised when an officer stops them, like this guy in San Diego.
I got a guy around between 3 or 4 in the morning walking down one of the residential streets. Nobody else on the street. He's the only one walking in the dark, and he's carrying a cash register. And the first question they always ask you when you stop to talk to him is, why are you stopping me? And I explained to him, because you're carrying a cash register and it's 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, where did you get the cash register? Well, I don't really know where I found it. I found it, you know, or somebody gave it to me. And it turned out to be that he just burglarized a business no more than 2 blocks away, and he stole the whole cash register. And he was walking down the street carrying the whole cash register.
A cop in Merrimack, New Hampshire, got more than crumpets and polite conversation from this group of lunchtime losers. While on his usual patrol, our undercover officer noticed a shady group of guys make their way around the back of a building. He casually followed them and struck up a conversation.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Hey, listen, man, what's up?
Hey, what's up? Whoa, wow.
Where this came from.
All right, hey, listen, I wouldn't do that if I were you. There's a lot of cops around
Chill
here.
out, dude. Don't worry about it. The cops are on their lunch break, man. It's all right.
Not all of them. You're all under arrest.
Man,
Let's go.
Man.
The bummed-out bonehead was less than stoked about his bread and water value pack served down at the station a few hours later. Just so you know, dumb does not stop on the Canadian border. In fact, in this case, it speeds up. An officer from St. Catherine, Ontario, tried to stop a suspicious car that ignored the emergency lights and sirens and sped away at speeds of over 100 miles per hour. The hoser shut off all of his lights, thinking that the officer wouldn't be able to see him as he made a variety of turns through the neighborhood. That plan might have worked if he hadn't used his turn signals at every corner until he got to his home, allowing the officer to easily follow him and arrest him within moments. Now, lights out means something completely different than it did when he wasn't in jail.
Go back to the couch and assume the position.
I'm Daniel Butler, and this is Beaumont Bacon in Mosaic.
Hi. Hi, Daniel.
Hi, yeah.
A guy in Idaho had found a pair of shoes that he liked and took them out of the box and replaced them with his old smelly pair. Then he ran out of the store.
And his new pair of hot heels,
It
I
was
guess,
hot heels. Luckily, the store clerk recognized him as a window washer that worked in the area and immediately notified the police, and once she had realized what had happened.
The hush puppy poacher was brought in for questioning, but surprise, surprise, denied any wrongdoing. That is, until the detective pointed out the suspicious, shiny new shoes on our footwear filter. They kicked him to the curb.
Yeah, I bet you they did. I
Yeah,
would've.
well, at least he was wearing his stolen goods on the outside of his body, unlike my next story.
I'm afraid to
A
ask.
28-year-old bank robbery suspect was caught a few hours after pulling the job. He immediately denied robbing the bank.
Naturally.
The officers quickly noticed that the man was unusually padded in his jeans and immediately strip searched him. As he bent over to remove his pants, they noticed that he had over $2,000 worth of bills stuffed into his underwear.
I hope it was worth it. Where can I get a pair of those pants?
I wish I knew.
Which brings us to our
Vidiot of the week. From all of the stories that we've
stories
received this week,
that we received.
this is our favorite. An impatient burglar in Van Nuys, California got a little nervous while waiting for a jury to finish deliberations, so he decided to make a run for it. And he might have made it if his getaway car hadn't been delayed between floors.
He probably should have pressed the button repeatedly. That always makes the elevator come faster, you know.
Never works for me.
That's because you're tall.
You should never drive drunk. You know it and I know it, but this woman must have decided that it didn't necessarily apply to her this day as she rolled up to a stop sign with a cop right behind her. An officer noticed a car waiting at a stop sign a little longer than normal. He casually pulled up behind the car, hoping another car might wake the driver from her daydream. Suddenly, her car slowly rolled back slightly into the front of the cruiser. She immediately pulled forward and stopped again. However, instead of proceeding, the car rolled back into the officer's car again. He knew something was up and was about to get out and talk to the woman when she rolled back into the cruiser a third time. Well, the third time is always a charm, and the officer pulled her over and discovered that she was very intoxicated and having trouble staying awake. He helped her park her car off to the side of the road and gave her a lift down to the station, where she napped. An 82-year-old woman made the mistake of running through a stoplight and then failed to pull over when a police officer flashed his lights. She got onto the freeway, ignoring the irritating red flashing lights and sirens behind her. She was soon surrounded by over 20 California Highway Patrol and LAPD cars and a police helicopter. She eventually got tired of all the noise and, using her turn signal, finally pulled over, asking the officers what all the commotion was about. After they determined that Miss Daisy was harmless, they asked her why she never pulled over. She claimed that she did nothing wrong and therefore didn't see any reason to. She was sentenced to baking 5 to 10 years worth of cookies for all the officers involved.
There you go, ma'am.
There's more to come.
I'll take him in mine.
A Yuletide burglar gets caught with his pants down.
You got a hell of a way of celebrating Christmas, my friend.
A loser picks the wrong place to light up.
Hey!
What's up?
A trio of shoplifters make a run for it.
Stop!
Wait,
Stop!
no, wait, you guys!
Guys, come back here!
A crook picks a hairy hideout. All this and more coming up.
You have the right to remain seated.
It's definitely true what they say. There's no business like show business. How else do you explain the fact that Robert De Niro's name alone helped the Boston police make over 50 arrests in one afternoon? The police department sent out fake letters to people asking them to be extras, $200 a day extras, for the Rocky Marciano story, directed by Robert De Niro. These folks all had two things in common. One, their love of showbiz, and two, the fact that they all had outstanding arrest warrants.
Yeah.
That's a wrap of the set.
Right. Yeah. Great.
Most of you guys are lousy actors.
Hey. Yeah?
And you're under arrest for outstanding
Hey,
warrants.
what? Hey.
And there you have the true story of Caging Bull, when dumb criminals get knocked out by their own egos. Everyone will tell you that the only way for any business venture to succeed is through teamwork. Everyone coming together to achieve the same goal. Unfortunately, these three business partners came together just at the wrong time. Our shopaholics, seen here in a clothing store near Chicago, decided to pick out a couple of outfits with their five-finger discount. However, as they attempted to leave the store with their bag of goodies, a security guard stopped them. This is when the dumb criminal motto came in to remind them of their dedication to each other. One for all, and all should run. At which point the two men immediately fled, leaving the woman with the stolen goods. Now, before you women out there throw up your hands and say that's just like a man to leave the woman behind to clean up, they do redeem themselves. Sorta. The gutless Goombas showed up at her court hearing to post bail, but didn't plan on the store security guard being there, who immediately identified them as her accomplices. I'm sure it was a tearful reunion for the trio as they were led out of the courtroom, linked arm to arm, to discuss their new venture together. License plates are us. Many cops have to moonlight to make a living. But this next officer got extra cash and comic relief from his second job.
It's obvious we're dealing with a group of people here for whom planning is not a strong point. Some of them are chemically compromised, I'll say. We've got a particular guy at one of the stores where I work. Comes into the store just kind of stumbling, and you know, the minute you pick this guy up on camera, even if we didn't know him very well from the 8 previous arrests, you can see the guy's trouble. He stumbles back to the meat counter. He's hungry today. Picks out a very large pack of steaks. They're 4 tenderized round steaks. So this package is like 2 feet long and probably 14, 16 inches wide. He tries to stuff it down the neck of his sweatshirt and it won't fit. So then he sticks it up underneath his shirt, and it looks like he has taken a TV tray and stuffed it up in his shirt. You can see the outline of this meat package where the corners and edges are protruding from his shirt. And then he starts to walk out. I guess he's planning to be cool at this point. And, of course, we snatch him at the front door, and we take him into the security office, and we're processing him there. And I asked him, I said, we're getting all of his background information. I asked him where he lived, and he told me he was homeless. He lived on the street. And I said, well, man, if you're living on the street, how did you plan to cook 3 pounds of raw meat? And he looks at me, and he gets this really kind of sheepish look, and he kind of gives me this little chuckle like, well, I hadn't thought about that part.
You know it's dangerous, and yet you think about it. You know it's illegal, and yet you try it anyway. You know you should wait, and yet you don't. Like this woman. An officer in Rosenberg, Texas, stopped a woman for driving through the railroad barricades one afternoon. She refused to believe that it was illegal. The officer argued with the woman for a few minutes and finally wrote her the ticket, at which point she refused to sign it, stating that it obviously wasn't against the law.
I'm not signing any ticket, I'm telling you.
Ma'am, let me ask you something. What is it that you don't think is against the law with what you just did?
Sir, I just don't understand. If it's against the law, why do they have that space there for me to go through?
There you go, ma'am.
Needless to say, Choo Choo LaRue got a one-way ticket to court.
You, step away from the remote now.
There's an old musical standard that our parents all knew. Smoke gets in your eyes. Nowadays, the places where a person can enjoy a cigarette are numbered. Our next walking chimney could not have picked a worse time or place to light up. A young man in Metairie, Louisiana, was concerned about a pal who had been put in jail over the weekend and walked into the city lockup and asked about him. Ignoring the fact that it's a jail in a smokeless public building, he decided to smoke a little pot to relax. sharing the experience with the policeman at the information desk by blowing some smoke in his face. He was caught 1 block away with some of the weed in his possession. From our smoker's point of view, one good thing did happen. He finally got to spend some time with his friend. The mind of a criminal can often come up with a strangely different sense of logic. Let's look, for example, at our next case. The Petaluma police were trying to coax a known criminal out of a trailer home and had even threatened to send in the canine unit. However, the criminal did not emerge. Eventually, 2 of the officers entered the trailer, which at first seemed empty. Their canine counterparts soon sniffed out our perpetrator, who had tried to hide in a large animal carrier. When questioned as to what he was thinking, his answer was, "I didn't think the dog would pick up my scent in there." We all know how hard it is to keep the kids from getting up at the crack of dawn to open their Christmas presents. But what do you do when it's not your kid? On Christmas morning in Chevy Chase, Maryland, a couple called the police to report a burglar in their home who was downstairs attempting to stuff their presents into his pants and sneak out. Police quietly entered the house and arrested the little elf, who must have been looking for a pair of suspenders that he obviously misplaced before leaving the North Pole. He was last seen decking the halls at the local jail. Well, our bungling buffet is now closing, but please join us next week as we serve up another heaping helping of hapless hoodlums here on America's Dumbest Criminals.
On the next America's Dumbest Criminals.
The reason you're driving so fast is because you're running out of gas.
Oh, no. I should have half tank.
A Halloween hoodlum picks the wrong clerk to hold up.
Let go, let go.
An arguing couple lets a cop settle their differences.
Let's go take a look about this.
A bank robber gets robbed himself during his getaway. A crook gets caught with the goods after a car accident. All this and more on the next episode of America's Dumbest Criminals.
Wait, hold on.
I was working night shift, it was about 9 years ago, and we got a standard call, an alarm call, over in an industrial area of the city. That late at night, it's not uncommon to get a burglar alarm call. I responded and heard the alarm going off, walked up to one corner of the building. I was familiar with the building and knew that we only had an entrance and an exit to the building. All the windows were covered by the metal grates, the fire bars. The doors were covered and the windows were covered. Well, as I looked into the window to see what was going on, what was activating the alarm, as I looked in, the same time the suspect who was inside looked out, so we basically went face to face. And I think we actually scared each other more than I think either one really knows. I kind of jumped back. He jumped back and went into the building further in the dark where I couldn't see him. I pulled back away from the building and called for additional units. In the meantime, I was checking the doors from my point of view to make sure that he didn't get out. And in the back of my mind, I knew he couldn't get out because the doors were grated and they had the bars in front of them. So the only way to get in would be through the roof. While I'm waiting for the responding units to come, I heard a loud crash. I ran back up to the side of the window to look inside, and I found him laying on the floor. And he was laying there, and he had his gloves on. Like I say, he had his gloves on, and he had the dark clothing, which would be typical for a burglar at nighttime. It was apparent that he broke his leg. He had his gloves still on his hands, and apparently the screwdrivers he had in his pocket had basically poked him in the legs, and he was bleeding. We called for an ambulance and the fire department to come because we couldn't gain entry inside because of the fire bars. While we were waiting, I decided to take a picture of the guy while he's laying on the floor so I could use it later on in court as evidence. So I took a Polaroid picture of him laying inside the closed business, and you can see the hole in the ceiling. And he was laying on the ground with the gloves on, and the screwdriver stuck in the side of his leg, and his leg, it appeared to be broken. And he was hollering and screaming. So I took a picture of the Polaroid, and when the fire department got there, we made entry and gave him medical aid. When it came time for court, I produced the Polaroid picture to the judge in court, and basically the judge says, "You're not going to fight this, are you?" And he said, "No, I'm not going to fight this." So basically, it never went to court, because I had everything on the Polaroid.